Hey, good afternoon. I want to welcome everybody to our Zoom today. We have Coty Sicble from North Dakota is going to be our guest, but I'm going to introduce myself first. I found Crea through my great friend, Gloria. I had reached out and mine started with animals, not people, but and it helped them immensely. I was amazed, but we also started it, the whole family. And what I didn't know is that I could feel better than I do. It's kind of one of those things. It's like, wow. So I've been with the Crea about 4 months and it's changed my life. And I love this company and I love the people that surround it. And so I want to introduce to you Ruth, who is going to take over from here.
So, hi, my name is Ruth Crea, and I would like to introduce a testimony from Dan Doyle. And he is an ambassador, an Crea ambassador, triple diamond, and he's going to speak about his personal health journey from a terminal life illness. And it's a pretty amazing testimony. So I welcome you.
You're going to hear a statement now that's a pretty profound statement, and I want you to open up your minds for anybody who hasn't heard about this, because what we're going to talk about is nothing less than the single greatest health science, anti-aging, and sports performance breakthrough of our lifetime. And some health practitioners, professionals are saying there will never be a bigger breakthrough. So we've got something pretty profound here. Before I go into my story and I'll show you some photos, I just want to talk about the company disclaimer, and I'm going to talk about specifically these products, Crea and the Renew 28. Now, these products, Crea and Renew 28, are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease or medical condition. So we just want to make that clear up front. I've got an incredible personal physical story. You're going to hear about that now, but we're not going to make any claims here at all. This is just passing on information, and you're going to understand by these photos, a pinch of paint's 1,000 words, what I went through personally and how I've gone from literally a few years ago, zero health, to where I am today. So I'm going to show you a few photos, and the first one is going back to my sporting days. I used to love playing sports. I played rugby league, I did judo, gymnastics, I did aerobics, I surfed. And I ended up doing this thing called bodybuilding. So this is me back when I was 24 years old. I was getting ready for the New South Wales state titles in 2 different federations. I don't like to talk about the 2 weeks after this photo, even though I looked a lot better. I actually came second in both competitions. But the reason why I'm showing you this photo is because I used to look after myself. I was so passionate about what I did. I achieved highly in sports and anything I really did in life. The next photo is a picture of me not doing bodybuilding, but 20 years later at the age of 44, doing a lot more cardiovascular, not picking up the heavy weights, but really looking after myself. So here I'm thinking at this age, I'm coming into close to 50, mid 40s, and I was just about to tip on the other side of going down to 50. And I'm thinking I want to be the best 50-year adult human being that I can be. And in this photo, I do look pretty fit and healthy, but I can tell you I was in a lot of trouble. 6 months later, the doctors gave me some very bad news. And you can see in this next photo, which was literally 6 months later, that I had no hair from the top of my head to my toes. My second home here in Sydney was a hospital called the Royal North Shore Hospital. It was my second home. I spent a lot of time there. And what they put me through in that hospital, I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. This was a very fake smile. And I really, literally didn't physically want to be here with what I was going through. This is a friend of mine, Johnny Manor. He did play the highest level of rugby league here in Australia. He played for the Cronulla Sharks and a team that I love and support called the Parramatta Eels. Johnny had been through what I'd gone through. He had got the good one. I was lumped with the bad one. He'd already been through all those hospital visits. And unfortunately, just after this photo, his came back and we lost him at the age of 23. He was only 21 years old in this photo. At the end of those hospital visits, my specialist literally told me, because I asked for it, I said, what's going to happen? Where's my health going to? And he was straight to the point and he said, get your affairs in order. So we went to the solicitor, we got a paperwork done, we got a little camper van, we started traveling Australia to enjoy what time that I had left. It was a situation where I would have to go back into those hospital visits, and you can only handle so many of those hospital visits. So I made a decision when he told me that to take the responsibility of my own health back into my own hands. And I did some research, and my research led to an alkaline diet. So I went on this pristine alkaline diet. I took red meat out of my diet, chicken, alcohol, everything I could to keep my body in an alkaline state, which this thing that was in me apparently could survive in an alkaline state. I did spend a lot of money on nutritional products from a lot of network marketing businesses. I wasn't involved in a network marketing business before. I came from traditional business, but I researched companies like Zengo for their mangosteen juice, Isogenics for their product B, Protandem, Celgevity, Kangen Water. I spent a lot of money on these products for 2 years. And you would think, being on a pristine alkaline diet and spending all this money on all these products to try and help my body and empower it to heal itself, that I would actually look better 2 years later than what I did here. But this was the result. I asked you the question, do I look healthy? So what you're seeing here is a direct reflection of what was happening on the inside of my body still, and it wasn't good. My skin was horrendous. I had red and yellow rings around my eyes. I looked horrendous. I felt horrendous. I had a little bit more hair, but nothing had changed, including the tests that I was getting, the results I was getting every 6 months. This was October 2014. I want you to write down or remember that date, because I got a phone call off a friend of mine named Bart Cotter. And Bart introduced me to a technology. Actually, all he said over the phone was, I think I found something that could help. He knew I was in a lot of trouble with my health. Within a week, I found myself on a plane heading to Salt Lake City, to the headquarters of this company called Crea. And Crea is a cellular health company. And we were sitting in the boardroom. I was in the boardroom with Bart, and also with a friend of mine, Mal Sword, who came along with me from Australia, who had skin challenges for 40 years and spent over $100,000 trying to get on top of what he was going through without getting any results. So we were there looking at the technology, this breakthrough for our health. Dr. Gary Samuelson, who's the atomic and medical physicist, was talking about this breakthrough, the science behind these products. Actually, there was only one product at the time, and that's this one we're going to talk about, which is the Crea Redox supplement. And these bottles were sitting on the table in the boardroom. And all I can recall what I understood of what Dr. Gary Samuelson was saying, because a lot of the science was going over my head, was what was in the bottle sitting on the table was 100% non-toxic, and it could have health benefits. So Mel and I are sitting there and we're gorging this down because it was, it was non-toxic, could have health benefits, and it was free, which was great. So I'd gone through about half a bottle while sitting there. Dr. Samuelson finished his presentation. We went back to the hotel room because we were going to have a shower and freshen up. We're going to meet Dr. Gary Samuelson for dinner and the founders of Crea, Vertus Norton and Tyler Norton. And I took off my shirt to have a shower, and I'm covered in these little red spots. So what I was trying to achieve here in 2 years on this pristine alkaline diet and taking all these products, what I was trying to achieve here in that 2 years was happening in 3 hours. I was going through a major detox. I was detoxing so fast that the toxins couldn't wait till I went to the bathroom. They were coming out of my skin. So that was my first win on this product. The next morning I got up and I'm thinking to myself, I'm going to test this product that I was drinking the day before. And I did have some prior to breakfast that morning. And I went to breakfast and I'm thinking to myself, now, if I have 2 coffees, I'm okay. If I have any more than 2 coffees, I'm buckled over all day with an issue of bloating in my stomach and all sorts of problems because I've had a caffeine intolerance for 20 years. Now, you probably ask, why did I still drink coffee at the time? Well, I was so tired and lethargic after those hospital visits. I actually used to drink more coffee to give myself more issues, to give myself the discomfort that it was giving me to get myself through the day so I wouldn't fall asleep. It was a horrendous existence. I I had 6 coffees the next morning. Now, that was a very difficult thing to do for you guys in America, or you're probably used to coffee, or you may not be. But for us guys coming in from Europe, from Australia, from all around the world, the coffee doesn't taste good at all. I had 6 coffees and I went through the whole day with nothing to remind me of what I endured for 20 years. So that 20-year issue was gone in 12 hours. That was my second win. The third win came the next day. I had so much lung damage from what they put me through in that hospital. I was having trouble breathing and talking at the same time. And you can see now I don't have that problem. The next day, my lungs were functioning at 100%. They were functioning perfectly. So that was my third win in a couple of days. And that was my experience on the product when I first started. You can just imagine how excited I was. It was really that second day, that third win, when my lungs were functioning perfectly, that's when the light bulb went on, that whatever this stuff was pretty amazing. So do you think I went back to Australia after that and I stayed on the product? I kept drinking it? Of course I did. So unfortunately, though, I came from a position where I was very successful in business to losing everything when I lost my health. And when I came back, I could only afford to drink a bottle a week. But halfway through 2015, I increased the amount that I was taking to at least half a bottle a day. And by December 2015, I got some really, really, really good news. My specialist couldn't find any sign of the 2 major issues that were literally going to be the death of me, which was ongoing hospital visits, and the body can only handle so much. But not only that, and I'll show you a photo when I got that news, and it was actually on that day, you'll see the difference. Not only that, I had a lot of injuries from playing sports from all those years ago. I had a severe whiplash injury. I had 80% use of the shoulder, 80% use of the left hand. I had back problems, hip problems, pelvic problems. I used to be lying in bed for time every month on medication to try and reduce the inflammation with my back being out. And all these things literally went away. My whole body was rebuilt, including pollen issues I had with sneezing and runny noses all day in 2015. So I just want to go back from October, this photo in October 2014, to just over 12 months later. Now, this was the health benefits that I received myself, that I achieved through taking this product. If you look at the anti-aging side, you can see my health. I look a lot better in these 2 photos, and they're just over 12 months apart. But in less than 2 years later, you can see that I went from this to this to this. And what you can see now, which hopefully looks younger than what I am here. So this is an incredible breakthrough, the single greatest breakthrough in health. So I've been through that. Anti-aging, you can see what I look like now. And in sports performance, I mean, I'm power walking literally up to 3 hours a day sometimes. And I could go all day like Forrest Gump and not stop because of what this is doing as far as performance, endurance, strength, and the recovery.
Thank you for sharing that with us, Ruth. Next, I'd like to introduce everybody. Whoops.
You're going to hear a statement now that's a pretty profound statement.
There we go. I got to get my slides working correctly here. Come back and we'll start again. I would like to introduce to everybody my good friend and colleague, Dr. Coty Sicble. Coty's been a practicing doctor of chiropractic and overall health for 14 years. She's worked hard and has built a business full of patients that crave to learn more about their health. She loves what she does, and every day, every patient, and every situation provides a new challenge, which she thrives on. She's also a retired veteran of the North Dakota National Guard, having served 10 years enlisted and retired as a major with 12 years. She's also married to an amazing man, Monty Sicble, and they have 2 of the most brilliant children, Carly 9 and Elliot 4. They are all using the ASEA products, and they each have their own experiences. Having grown up on a small hobby horse farm in New Salem, she learned the necessity for hard work and education, and she really thrives on that. So help me to welcome Coty, Dr. Coty.
Hello, everybody. So glad to be on. I love these calls, and I have seen Dan's video before, and yet every time I think I pull something new from their talks. So I love hearing them. Like Gloria said, I am a chiropractor, and about, I would say probably roughly 5 to 10 years ago, somewhere in there, I started getting extremely frustrated with not being able to help my patients more fully with their orthopedic injuries, with their gut injuries, with their anxiety, overall health, like I said. And so I started really looking into, at that time, CBD oil and cannabis, and there was a lot of research with it. And so I did have a couple patients that tried it with some good results, but a lot of them only had 2-3 months, solid good results, maybe some lingering things here and there. So I started looking at, glutathione, really, really researching oxidative stress, because all the things that I just listed off, like I said, muscle weakness, neurological issues, GI issues, anxiety issues, depression, all those things actually relate back to oxidative stress. And so I started looking into anything that was heavy antioxidants. So I was referring patients for intravenous vitamin C, intravenous glutathione, anything I could, intravenous B complexes, and again, see some results, little bits, feeling really good for a while, and then it would go back. And so I love how I came into ASEA, and I love hearing people's stories about how we step into ASEA. Like, I think it finds us when we need it. So my story of ASEA is I was actually calling for political help because our world stresses me out. And like Gloria said, I have 2 beautiful babies that I'm trying to, create a world that's worth leaving to them. So I called her about politics, and she asked me, why I was so motivated. And I said, because I think our healthcare system is killing people. I think that there is between our, and I shouldn't say just healthcare, right? Big Agra is also in there, right? So we have things on our food, we have things in our hair products, in our makeup, we have things in our pharmaceuticals that are causing damage to our cells. And we know this because if we listen to the side effects of them, the list is longer than the benefit. And there's nothing in this world that if somebody told you, I have this one thing, but there are 14 bad things that are going to happen to you if you do this one thing, how many of us would take that? Like, how great would that one thing have to be? So it was just crazy. It was very frustrating to me. So when I told her this, she's like, we have to stop talking about politics. We got to talk about ASEA. And so she asked if I'd ever heard of Redox Signaling. And I remember hearing about Redox Signaling in college, but I said, I didn't think they had a way of stabilizing this. And so as she's telling me about ASEA, I'm researching like crazy. I'm getting on PubMed. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's like 30,000 studies covering Redox Signaling now. And when did this happen? And she said, really over the last decade. So, and I really stress too that, so when I describe oxidative stress, and I don't know if you want me to tailor something else with this, Gloria, you tell me. Okay. So I always explain to my patients that you're kind of like an aluminum can when you're born, okay? And so when you fall off the slide, you get a dent in your back, right? And you fall off the chair, you get a dent in your side, and you had a really bad case of chickenpox, so you have a dent here and a dent here. Now, if our bodies are functioning properly, it will repair that dent, right? But it needs to be functioning properly, and we need to give it the right nutrients, the right minerals, the right rest, and chiropractic care and massage, all those things. If your dents start to outweigh the body's ability to repair those dents, we start looking more and more like a raisin in our cells, right? And in our bodies. And the bad thing about that is if those raisins stay before it proliferates or becomes another new cell, it stays a raisin. It doesn't turn back into a grape magically. That has to happen through the repair and the signaling that the body is saying, I need to be fixed. So this is where that oxidative stress, the more dents that we incur when we're younger and our bodies don't have time to take those dents out, we're going to have injury after injury after injury, and it's going to lead to systemic things. Now, I have patients ask all the time, why is this different? Why is ASEA different? Why are you so excited about this level of redox signaling? because the problem also when our cells become raisins, right? And I did have a picture of this, but when they become raisins, there's receptor sites on the outsides of all of our cells. And they always look like little forks to me. So they look like this. And with a healthy cell that's full like a grape, those are sticking way out. They look like those things that blow in the wind, and they're ready to grab every nutrient, right? And they're upright, they're ready, they're healthy, and they're pulling that nutrient into the cell. It passes through the cell membrane and gets in. If you take that grape and turn it into a raisin, those receptors come inside those folds of the cells. And so even though you're feeding it all the nutrients and chemicals, there's not enough energy to push this out to grab it. And unless that chemical or mineral or supplement pops into there, it's not getting into the cell. So you're creating almost a toxic field out there because there's nothing that has enough energy to pull it back in. So where redox comes in is it reinflates our raisins and turns them into grapes, these beautiful grapes. It's just amazing to me when you say it that way, because it's like, that's how we all feel. All of us on this feel like our cells are like, yeah, we're back in, we're ready to grab these supplements. And so even personally, how I tell this to people is I've been taking supplements every day since I can't even remember, probably undergrad. And within the first month of me taking ASEA, I had to bring my supplements back because I started getting lightheaded from my fish oils. I started getting niacin flushes that I wasn't ever getting before. And I was taking the same amount. I wasn't taking more, but it was like, my body was like, I got enough, lady. What are you feeding me? So it was kicking it out. And so that's the gloriousness of redox, because it plumps every one of those cells back up and it gets them working at a way. And the other thing I love about it is it doesn't dial in on one system. It doesn't dial in on one type of cell. It goes into every single cell. So no matter what my patient comes in with, if they come in, even constipation issues, I said, there's so many things that lead into constipation. So we can work on your GI, we can work on motility, we can adjust that low back, we can do all those things. But what about your thyroid? What about your kidneys? What about your lungs? What about detoxing isn't working in your body that we have to upregulate so that we can get that gut working better? I don't have to have that map. Redox knows, and it goes to those screaming little raisins, because those are the guys that are screaming greatly. They have the red flags out saying, help me, and Redox goes. So yeah, it's absolutely, I get so excited about the things I'm seeing with oxidative stress. And I mean, I have patients that have been on, I guess I would call them supplement regimens. They bring in their whole sack of supplements and we go through them, and I'll ask, I say, how long have you been on this? And they'll tell me, 1, 2, 3, 5 years sometimes. And I'll look at them and I'll go, don't you think you hit the deficiency? Like, shouldn't you be at the full mark yet? Because if you've been supplementing this amount of these specific ingredients, you shouldn't be empty anymore. If your body's been filling up with it, it should be empty. But it's because, like I explained to them, you're giving it, but your cells aren't receiving it. They can't get it into them because they're all tucked away in those little receptors in those folds of those raisins. So yeah, I don't know where you want me to go more from. You want me to keep?
Well, this was great. We can pause and we can see if there's anybody has any questions at this point, or questions about anything that they've brought to the table here today.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't see your messages, so you'll have to let me know.
Oh,
okay.
I just want to chime in, Coty. That was a really excellent explanation of how that redox signaling comes into our body. I love that analogy. I think it's super easy to understand.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
thank you. That was
well, and it's funny because when people hear it, it's like, that's what I feel.
Oh, they get it. They get it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, Ruth, Crea, you have a question?
Yeah. So, that was a really good explanation because it gave me a picture in my mind. And so I have several people that I've been talking to that like they hurt all the time. I was imagining their cells are like little raisins. And like one lady said, sometimes God heals and sometimes he doesn't. And I just would like to encourage her. Is that what's is that possible when people hurt all the time? To have you had people take this and because I know that you deal with a lot of pain when you're in your business.
Yes. And I don't guarantee a lot of things in my office. I really don't, because we don't know, right? Everybody's body is different, their pH is different. But I would say, I would also tell her that aluminum can explanation, right? Like if you were aluminum can, how many dents would you have? You have 72 trillion cells. You need to let this get to as many of those as possible in order to even out some of those dents. The bad thing is that the body goes into almost like a survival mode, right? When you have that many dents, it doesn't want to do anything because it's only has enough energy to keep you breathing, urinating, defecating, right? Like those are the only things it can do. And so it doesn't give a lot to help heal those things. And that's why she's in chronic pain, because those cells are all they're just starving, and they've got substance P going like crazy. And then there's inflammation coming in, and you've got so many toxins that the body's just sits. And then, the bad thing is it creates that negative feedback loop, right? So when you're in pain, you don't want to move. When you don't want to move, you don't want to eat. When you don't want to eat, you don't want to drink. And you have this such a bad thing with what I have seen. And so I have a patient who she had a traumatic, I want to say it was a horse riding accident, but she fell really hard when she was 8, and it created a horrible tightening in her right anterior hip area. I have been treating her, so she is now 52. I've probably been treating her for about 8 years as her chiropractor. We get her better, right? But only long enough, right? Only long enough where that dent comes back, kind of thing, because I've evened some of it out, but there's more over there. And so we get her better, and then within 3 weeks it'd be bad again, or whatever it was, depending on activity. And she actually has not seen me for about 6 months because she's doing so good with it. She said she finally feels like the rubber band has been removed from that hip. She doesn't have the chronic pinpoint tenderness that she had in her low back. And then she revealed to me that she now, contrary to what she was having before, where she was having, a bowel movement every 4 to 5 days, she now is going daily. So yeah, and this would have been almost a 40-year injury. And I've been working on it, and I do soft tissue, I do acupuncture, I do GI, I do all those things. And I wasn't getting to it at all. Yeah. And so I would tell her, just know that there's a lot of things that body's got to figure out. Right. And like I said, when you have more damage being done than rebuilding or repair, you have to realize that's why she's never getting out of that chronic state of pain, because it's just, there's too many things on survival mode. So when introducing this, did you say she already started it?
I gave her some Renew 28 gel just to try out.
Yep. Okay. So I would tell her, and I always explain this to patients. I love topical because it goes right to where you have pain, right? You can see something, but for her, I would totally explain your systems. All of your systems are on high alert, and nobody's getting a day off. So everybody's fatigued, everybody's underpaid, and everybody needs a vacation. And so no matter how much she puts on topically, because it might inhibit some of that substance P, but it since there's so many of them exuding that, we're still having the problem, the symptoms just getting a little better. And with the Renew, it does help the cells that are in that area. But by drinking it, you're going to hit so many more of those items, your hormone regulators, the organ tissues that are being angry, the soft tissue that is in there. And this is where I also say, what's it going to hurt? It's native to the body. It can do there's no contraindications with it. There's nothing that's going to prevent this from working. It's just how long will she be willing to take it? And I would almost even go with that with her, Ruth, is say, with what you have going on, with how much of your body's angry at you, will you give it 6 months? Usually we say 3 months, right? But I would tell her, because what if day 95 is it? Right? What if that's the day that we get over 50% of her cells happy? Because that's where I would tell you that the system changes, right? That's why when people jokingly say, I hit my 50s, right? Because that means that 50% of your workforce has gone on strike and the other 50% is working. Now, if you add all those dented workers in there too, you know, she's probably got 30% of her workforce trying to compensate for 70% not doing it. So we got to replenish, repair, and get those things gas started back up. But I would absolutely tell her, what's it going to hurt? I mean, and Julie's just one of the patients. I've had several patients where their pain, I mean, I have one, he's hilarious. He is 67 years old. He refuses to retire. He's a groundskeeper for one of our golf courses. And every year, like this time of year, the pain's going to start coming back, right? He's going to go back to work after a winter being off. And this year he told me, he's like, I can't wait to start work and see if I'm going to be good, Coty. I'm like, I can't wait for you to start work either, because what's it going to hurt? I know how bad you get usually in May, so let's see. So yeah, Larry's super excited. Yeah. So I would absolutely tell you, like, give her all those things and explain it like that. And I do like to explain the idea of how many cells are angry, right? Because I know that when they talk about ASEA, they talk about every decade we lose 10% of these redox signaling molecules, right? But they don't talk about the scar tissue, the damage, the shutdown of things, because that's escalating. And that's where, like I said earlier, that's where oxidative stress has gotten so aggressive in this time. That's why we're not aging gracefully anymore, because we have more things trying to shut us down than build us up. And so we're ebbing away at that percentage way greater. So yeah.
Thanks. That was a really good explanation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Coty, can I talk to you about the amounts, for instance, that your 50-plus-year-old patient that has chronic pain, how much was she taking to fill her tank so that she started feeling good?
So she is one of my interesting ones that I was like, I had just listened to, I can't remember if it wasn't Jerry, but I was like, we're going to hit this. We're going to hit it hard, Julie. I want, normally I would say at 50, we got to do it. And I usually say an ounce per decade. But then I have a little pie chart in my office, and I have the 5 different systems that ASEA helps with, right? So I have the hormone, I have sleep, I have GI, I've got, the 5 things that they did the gene study on. And I say, how many of these are you faltering in? Because if we're faltering in more than half of these, we gotta upscale that at least by an ounce, right? And then we have the whole thing, and I go right to the 8 ounces a day. Okay. Now, what happened with Julie, because of her chronic pain, she was using tons of ibuprofen. I call it vitamin I. And she was using Tylenol, and she had pain injections. And so her detox was horrendous. So we had to pull her back to half an ounce in the morning, half an ounce of the day. So she tried this because she was ready. She was ready to be pain-free. So she tried to do the 8 ounces a day for 3 weeks, and had chronic diarrhea, had headaches, had joint pain, had fatigue. And so she finally called me. I don't see patients very often in my office. I don't put them on treatment plans or care. And I always tell them they can call, but it'd been 3 weeks. And she called me. I said, Julie, why did you wait 3 weeks to call me? And she goes, well, you told me to do this. And so that's wonderfully trusting. But I pulled her back because I said, you're detoxing. And at that point, I had just listened to another testimonial, and the woman said, she goes, I had to drop it down to half an ounce. So that's what we did. We pulled Julie back to half an ounce in the morning. I said, if you can muster it, let's do half an ounce at night. If you're not getting sick at all, instead of upping either of those, let's do half an ounce in the middle of the day. So I was having her introduce it more often with less of an amount. And we just kept increasing those. So now she's back, and she just sticks at 5 now, because she's like, she's price savvy. And so I do recommend, if her pain is good, I say an ounce a decade. at minimum. So she's at 5 ounces a day, but I had her at 8, had to bring her back down to half twice a day. And so, but she's still doing amazing with it. She puts on the Renew 28 daily as well, though, on her hip and that anterior. But yeah, so, and that would have been, what did I say? Gosh, about 4 months now she's been on it. So, well, no, it would have been longer because I haven't seen her in 6 months. So she would have been on it 4 months when we brought it down to 5. That's what it was. Sorry, I was getting timeline, but yeah. So she's been on 5 ounces since then and loving life. Yep.
So Coty, do you have any patients that have, that was chronic pain? How about some chronic disease issues that you see that come in?
Yeah. So I have several, and it's interesting because what do we call chronicity these days? Because I have COPD patients, I have asthma patients, I have MS patients, ALS patients, I have some CP patients. So Lou Gehrig's, multiple sclerosis, cerebral palsy. I have tons of autism patients. I'm really well liked by some of the foster parents in Bismarck, and so they bring in a lot of their foster babies. So chronic disease there. I have eczema patients. I have chronic constipation, and by chronic constipation, I say anything that's lasted more than 3 months, where you don't go at least once every day to 2 days, depending on what age I'm looking at. And that's chronic, because when we talk about oxidative stress, we talk about the inability to detox. I need to start fixing gut. Absolutely. Because that is where we detox. So those are my big chronics. I have 3 cancer patients right now on it. One is a 37-year-old, and I'm crossing my fingers with this. So she's a massage therapist. She's a fantastic she just became a mommy last October and got diagnosed this past February. I've had her on 16 ounces a day. And I said to her, sorry, I'm not good at this whole disease things, you guys. She had multiplying cells. So sorry. And I'm not saying it's curing anything, right? Because she hasn't gone in for her big scan at Mayo. That's in a week and a half. But the PET scan that she just had showed nothing has grown. And she was told that it was extremely aggressive and that she had 6 to 8 months. So, I mean, there's across the board, but like I said, I have Mary on 16 ounces a day. I wasn't going to mess around with her. As a 37-year-old mama, she came into my office completely distraught, right? Like, she has this beautiful new baby. She said, what do I do? Mm-hmm. That if it was me, I'd be doing this. No question. She did try 1 round of chemo. Her doctor told her she was crazy if she did just what I had said, and it got worse. So they immediately stopped that chemo.
I'd like you to go ahead and give a disclaimer for a minute, if you would, Dr.
Yes. Yeah. Sorry.
Oh, go
disclaimer.
ahead.
Yeah. Disclaimer. I apologize, you guys, because it gets really super exciting, but ASEA does not cure or treat anything. It is not meant to eliminate any diseases. It is not meant to combat anything chronic, longevity, none of those. So it does not cure or treat any disease. But like I stated, it is a cellular technology. So if there is a cell gone rogue, this will help that cell gone rogue. So yes, so it does not cure or treat anything.
So Coty, even while they're doing some of those variety of treatments for those rogue cells, I've had people I've talked to, and the big question is, will it interfere with those treatments? And your comments on that?
I always think this is funny because, medical doctors' ears blow up, I think, whenever I say this, right? If that doctor allows for you to go out and eat ice cream and chips and anything that you can, because this is what they tell those patients, right? They don't tell them to eat clean. They don't tell them to watch their diet and eliminate the sugars, right? If your doctor tells you that, then you should not be worried about this. These are native to your cells. They're less catastrophic to you than a Cheeto. And like I say, when it's native and there's no contraindications, there's none. And in fact, I would actually tell you that some of the patients that I have on these treatments have that the one patient has a revisit of these cells. It's come back. It's not as aggressive. But she has said, having had these treatments before, the symptoms from them are much more mild. She's not getting the catastrophic fatigue. She's not getting the sores in her mouth. She's not getting the puffy water retention in her feet. And again, like I said, if these doctors are not worried about changing the diet that actually created and worsened some of this, I would not be worried about this. There's not a contraindication that I've researched at all with it. And like I said, I know that they're like I jokingly said, I think their heads probably blow up because they don't want to hear this, right? Because it floors me when doctors even say, you go into the hospital and if you have a kidney condition, they put you on a kidney diet, right? So you can't have this and you can't have that. And then they tell you as well, like you shouldn't have this food because this food has the vitamin that will work too good with your prescription. Right. So like you can't have this vitamin because you're going to basically overdose yourself on goodness. So instead of saying, I'm not going to put you on this pill, but I want you to have a cup of spinach every day. They say, don't eat spinach because it'd be too good while you're on this prescription. Right. So this is how backwards medicine is they want to tell you to be watchful of all these things. And I would probably tell you too, the reason why doctors say that is when you do a chemo treatment or a chemo clinical study or any pharmaceutical study, they're not allowed to test with any other drug. So they can't verify their results of that drug if they allow you to take anything else. Right. So if they've had successful results with whatever type of pharmaceutical out there and you take something else, they could say that, well, you negated it because we didn't test it with that. So it's kind of a long way answer in there, but I really stress on this where, I have patients trying it and it's not a huge study, but the patients that are doing well with it, they're not having issues. And even when I explain kind of what this is, where it is a saline solution. So if they're willing to give you an IV with this, right? If they're willing, which they oftentimes do, they worry about the fluids with these patients that are doing these. The IV solution is maybe the thing I would worry more so is just water retention with those patients, but I strongly advise against being worried about it. I have yet to see, other than detox issues, anything bad coming with these molecules. So yeah, I think that kind of answered. I kind of went a wayward way about that, but I love my patients and I always tell them I'm never going to be here to hurt you. And so the research that I've done on these, they get my stamp of approval over and over, and it's interesting. And I think I can say, like, I have a couple oncology nurses that have absolutely told me in truth and honesty, they would never take their treatment. They would never do the treatment that they give patients, right? Because they see what it does to them. Right. So, right. So if you have nurses that see that and they know how negative the effects of these drugs can be, and yet you don't want to try something that has absolutely no contraindications. What is so scary about that? And I always end with the what if. What if this is the one thing that flips all of your raisins into grapes? What if this shuts down that aberrant mutation? What if this shuts down the cellular replication that is going rogue? What if? Because the doctors, if they're being honest, that's all they're saying with their drug. What if this works? Right? And if it doesn't, we're going to go back to the drawing board. That's how that always works with a pharmaceutical. It's just that we've gotten used to that. And in the supplement world, if we don't have the magic, right? The magic thing that helps right away, people stop using it. So there you go. Long story long.
Thank you. That was excellent, Coty. Thank you.
And Ruth, you had another question?
Yeah. So you were talking about detox, and I was wondering, because I've had some people that have started this and they've had really bad stomach issues. Is that like one of the, and I didn't know enough to tell them, I did tell them to back off, or it was a choice, but they didn't want to back off, and then they got really sick. And so it's really important when we're sharing this with people, especially if they have, like if they hurt all the time, or they have more intense issues that they may, or their body is has more raisins than plump cells, that they may go into more detox, and it may be tougher for them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the way I would explain this too, okay, so again, 72 trillion cells, right? And now imagine that every one of those cells didn't take the garbage out at the same time. And then they were given the go ahead to start taking the garbage out, right? And that's what's happening with those detox cases. And so that's why we say, bring it down, because I don't actually want you asking all 72 to dump the garbage at the same time. I want to only have like 15 million doing it. So, and that's where I would say, absolutely pull them back, but still keep giving it. And again, this goes back to the whole discussion of, they give the analogy about the fire truck, but I give the analogy of an apartment building, right? So if you're in an apartment building and you've got 4 floors, let's say, and you've got a chronic fire on floor 1 and a chronic fire on floor 3, right? And you start putting out individual fires in those rooms, but they're restarting because you still have the chronic fires, right? And so this is where taking that little bit each time, we might put out half of floor 3 after 3 months. And now we can actually start putting out half of floor 1. And now we can, and if that fire gets pulled back, it's starting less things on fire. So yeah, but I would absolutely stress that detox, because it is miserable. And we know this with, and this is chiropractic, patient compliance goes down when things get too miserable, right? And we can explain that, yes, this is a necessary evil, or this is something that your body is trying to do, but it's really hard to get them to stay on board with feeling that cruddy. So yes.
When they do that cruddy, do you have them also drink more water, or do you monitor how much water they're drinking when they're using the Redox?
I would love to monitor water, and I would love to tell everybody just drink more. I'm military, so that's what we always said with anything was, right? No, oh, that stings, drink water. I do tell people to drink water all the time, every chance I can get. And the reason I say that is, think of running water. So I love the analogy of, you can be 2 different types of bodies of water. You can be a dam that is locked up on all sides. Think of the kind of fish that are in that body of water, right? You've got carp, you've got bottom feeders, you've got, I always like catfish and all those yuckies. And that body of water actually gets more algae, gets more green, gets more bogged down, right? Or you can be a body of water that looks like a fresh mountain stream that's got water coming in, water coming out. You've got beautiful rainbow trout. You've got clear water that you can see the rocks at the bottom. Now, the more you drink, the more you become the river. The less you drink, the more you're a dam. So you can pick which one you want to be. So, yeah.
Analogies, Coty, they're great.
This is how you explain health.
Yeah. Rhoda, I see you have a hand up for a question.
Yes, I just really like the analogies, but I'm 75, and a year ago I became a paraplegic overnight. And so what I always kind of wonder what kind of how many ounces to take, because they kind of vary.
Mm-hmm. What makes you vary, Rhoda?
Well, I just wonder whether more is better, or
Right. How long have you been taking it?
Since last September. So
we're approaching like 9-10 months. Okay. This is going to be one of those where I vary myself. I do the 4 ounces at minimum, but on days where I feel really cruddy, or if I was out being really active, or if 9 people were around me sick, I bump it, right? So for you though, you said you're 70, 75?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so again, bare minimum, I tell people 1 ounce per decade.
Yeah,
right?
okay.
And then, so that would be where I would tell you. Now, if you have to do that 2 ounces 3 times a day, or however you want to do it. But I would also tell you, if you can tolerate that and you can get more aggressive, I'm not opposed to that. I know
Yeah.
that there's people that I talk to that, drink 16 ounces a day. The only people that I have on that right now are those with those rogue cells. I don't put anybody else, most everybody else, if they're in that 60 to 80 range, and when I bring out that pie wheel of where they have issues in their body, we get them almost all to about that 8 ounces a day. So I would tell you, at minimum, that's where I would put you. But on your days where you're feeling ugly and lethargic and heavy, and those are days where I would push maybe, like I usually say 1 to 4 more ounces. Yeah.
Sorry about the dogs.
No, that's okay.
Are there any other questions for Dr. Coty? I haven't checked the chat to see if there's any in there. Well, I wonder, Coty, if you'd be willing to just kind of walk people through, when they've heard this kind of information, what are some of the options that are available to them?
So whenever I walk them through this, I always say, I didn't join ASEA to make money. I got on the product because of what I thought it could do for me or my patients. However, once you get into this and you realize how beautiful this company is and the compensation program, I would be absurd if I didn't tell people that you can build a business off of this. And whether or not you want to build a business, but instead of having to pay out of pocket what it would cost every month to get your shipments in, you can make that amount in commissions, and it's a wash. So if there's any guilt with buying a product, this company clears it out right away, right? So, and once I tell them that there's an option where they could make enough to cover that, almost every one of them becomes an associate, because you can become a retail customer. So I tell patients you can buy retail, and we have retail out of our office. Some people just like the convenience. Some people have entered into a network marketing before, and they're not there yet. So there is the retail customer option. A couple of things that I tell patients with retail. I actually like that there's a money value to this, and I like that there would be guilt if you didn't take it. Because I think that I have a far better patient compliance when there's something that's worth enough that you don't want to waste it, right? Because if you buy something that was only this amount of money, whatever that is for anybody, there's not enough of an investment where they care enough to try. So like I said, that being said, when I explain it that way, so you can be retail, you can buy out of our office. You can also be a preferred customer where you can purchase at my cost as well as an associate. And then you get an auto ship as well. But when I talk to, like with Rhoda there, when I recommend a certain amount of ounces, I let them know that there are different packages that they can purchase, because I want them to get as much bang for their buck, and I don't want them to run out, and I want there to be a playability with how many ounces we can have. I don't want there to be like this restriction that's holding us back when they just buy the one case at my office. I don't want that, because I want them to realize that this is their health. They get to play with it. So we talk about the different packages that they can purchase. And it all just depends on if it's just them, or if it's their spouse, or if now they're realizing that their child is dealing with anxiety, or problems with going to school, or sleep issues, or bedwetting issues, or GI issues. And they're like, well, actually, I think I have 1, 2, 3 members in my house. And then we'll go through a different the amounts of products that they can buy. And I do explain this is just like anything else. The more you buy up front, the better the discount. And the more that you buy up front, the more freedom you have with taking it and getting the right dose for you. And usually with that, between the two of explaining that becoming an associate at some time when you share this with somebody, and that's what I usually explain too. I don't sell out of my office to my patients. I give them my card, and we talk about it later so that they realize I'm not doing this as a soliciting doctor, because I think that's very, very, a very big thing in North Dakota. People don't want to feel like you're wearing the different hat than they originally saw you for. So I usually say we can talk about this later. But once I explain, that there is the opportunity of, if you share this, like I said, that's all I've been doing is sharing what this has done for my family, what it's done for my patients, and somebody signs up, that's all it takes. And then you have that person talk to somebody else and that person talk to somebody else, but they have to become an associate in order to do that, to sign other people up. So those are the options. And this company, like Darleen said, this company is so amazing. When we were in Vegas, I have never seen 30 plus people walk across the stage because they've been made millionaires because of a product they love that they take. We don't see that, I mean, so that was amazing to me. So yeah, I think that answered the question as to what are the options.
Yeah, and so for those of you who are here or listening later, go ahead, reach out to the person that shared this information with you and ask them to walk you through those steps, just like Dr. Coty was mentioning to us. So at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen again.
His church.
And I would like to invite everyone to come back next Wednesday, May 11th at 3:30. We're going to be having guest speaker Megan Hall with us. Megan lives in a small town in Georgia, and she loves to homeschool her children. She, prior to homeschooling them, had gotten her master's degree in early childhood education, and she was a 4th grade teacher for several years, which helped her to transition to teaching at home. But she says it looked very different. In her spare time, she's building an at-home business where she shares and educates people about the breakthrough products that have blessed her family. So I invite you to come and join us to hear Megan's story next week. And I thank you all for being with us today.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.